All right, welcome everybody to an exciting episode of Under the Dome, a day early. I will not be available tomorrow night, so that's why we're doing this tonight. Plus, I know how people are after a game. You want to talk about it. I mean, we talked about it at work all day. Um, you just want to get this thing going.
hmm
So I figured tonight would be a good night. We could take advantage of this. Unfortunately, no updates from Sean. As far as I know, he's still in ICU. I have not heard anything from anybody. So I'm going to continue to reach out to people, try and find out the latest information. And as I do, I will pass that along to everybody. Um, all right, Bob. I know you and Brendan have a pregame show,
hmm
halftime show. Do you have a postgame show as well?
No, we don't. And I'm not sure why. I expect that will be coming down the pike soon. Good night, sweetie. I love you. Sorry, bedtime. Uh, I expect the post game will be coming down the pike soon. I mean, yeah, these guys, against my advice, wanted me to do the halftime extravaganza starting last year, and I tried to warn them. I said, if the team's not playing well, you do not want me involved in a halftime or a post game. But they said, no, no, we want you involved. We have confidence in you, and I laughed. Yesterday was one of those moments where I came as close as a human being can come to dropping F-bomb on live TV. Uh, I I am pretty sure I used the word garbage 3 times minimum, um, in both describing play, team, and play specific players. And I know for a fact that one of those garbage comments started out with garbage. Uh, so it's only a matter of time.
Well, the funny thing is, I'm glad I'm not on a halftime show because for the first time, I really was participating in Twitter during a game, and I need to not do that because
Uh-huh.
it gets that emotion carries over because it's so much in the moment, uh, and it's very um, I don't know how to explain it other than you get very easily sucked into the doom and gloom, and you get very easily sucked into this is it, we're going all the way, kind of because the
Mhm.
pendulum swings so much. Um,
And you and I are more realistic, when
mhm,
analyzing. So rarely will we say after one play, one quarter, even one game, oh, this team is a championship contender. But we each call it how we see it, and doing so as emotional as you and I can both be. Twitter, Facebook becomes a dangerous world. I've been asked many times myself. Well, we get live updates from John Hendricks, Nick Underhill, et cetera. Why don't we get live updates or live analysis from you? I'm like, you don't want that. You don't want that.
no, I was already composing my good, bad, and ugly 3 times in the third quarter of how
Same.
what quote am I going to say about how badly being unprepared and how badly you got out coached. And the fourth quarter happened. Um, and then I have, oh yeah, here we go. Some people were calling for Andy Dalton at halftime. I can show you the text messages. It was in my family group text. They were all calling for Andy Dalton
hmm
because, especially in the third quarter, you feel like, well, this game is pretty much over. Um, you do not you do not see that coming, and the I think the most frustrating part, and it's game one. Okay, so remember what I had said a couple weeks ago about preseason and
Yep.
about what Mike Detillier said about the changes of preseason, that you really don't get to see the true identity of a team until about the third or fourth week of the season because preseason is now even shorter. But because the players don't play enough in the preseason
Mhm.
game. They limit the padded practices. So there's a lot of mistakes that they make early in the game. And you saw that play out this whole week. I mean, the Rams cannot be as bad as they looked Thursday night. Um, you watch Cincinnati, Joe Burrow threw 4 interceptions, against the Steelers. The Packers, and remember last year too, the Packers looked like trash against the Vikings. They
Mhm.
could move. Yeah, that was a funny meme this morning. Actually, I saw that. That everyone in the NFC South, no one in the AFC South won, and two teams played each other in
Yeah.
the AFC South. They got a tie. So yeah, I mean, you the mistakes that you're going to make are the kind of mistakes that you see teams make because the players are not used to playing an intense level of football for 4 quarters like that. Um, yeah.
And Alan, that's exactly the strategy that Atlanta came out with. When we've seen the Falcons beat the Saints in recent memory, as rare as that is, it's because of Matt Ryan, big play receivers, and a defense that steps out of the doldrums. We saw that defensively from Atlanta yesterday, who vastly outcoached Pete Carmichael and the offensive staff. But what infuriated me when the Falcons had the ball was that you didn't see any of that pass happy stuff. Mariota had a solid game as a passer, but for the most part, the Falcons just whipped the Saints front seven at the line of scrimmage. They ran right at them. It wasn't Cordero Patterson along the edge or any misdirections or anything. We're going to take Patterson and we're going to run the ball right down your throats, and you're not going to stop us. And until middle of the fourth quarter, the Saints didn't.
No, and of course they came out with the RPO, which the Saints have nightmares with, which blows my mind because you've got Taysom Hill
Right.
on your team. Have him run the scout team. But they just cannot handle the RPO. Once they get juked a couple of times, then they hesitate and they stand there waiting to see where it's going to go.
Mhm.
And by that time, Cordell Patterson is building up a head of steam and he's running over people. Um, there were 2 plays, and I talk about this in my good, bad, and ugly. There were 2 plays where you really saw the Saints take it to the Falcons. One of them was that 3rd and 1 play where Shy Tuttle blows it up and stops Patterson in his tracks. Doesn't make the tackle, but holds him in place where the rest of the defense can come in and push him backwards. And the
Mhm.
other one was Pete Werner firing in the hole when they were going to try and run that option play with Mariota, and he doesn't buy the option at all. And he just goes and nails Mariota for a 2-yard loss to
Mhm.
force a 3rd and long that unfortunately a BS call against. I only say that is because, yeah, technically Lattimore was holding him, but no more than what was being held the entire game by both teams. It's one of those kind of calls. I'm like, man, the call came in. This game can't end this soon, man. We got to have this go a little bit longer. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, it just um, there's a lot of growing pains that this team has to go through yet. And it's unfortunate we're playing 3 divisional games right out the
Mhm.
gate because these losses or wins really matter.
Yeah.
Um, so, okay, people thought James was coming out and Dalton was coming in. Maybe there was some hope with change of pace. And who can blame him? Yeah, I mean, when Jameis went out, he went to the locker room. A
Mhm.
couple guys went to the locker room. Um, Alvin Kamara went to the locker room, and that's
Mhm.
we were talking about that play, the 2 point conversion play that Kamara was not in for. Yeah. Um, and I think that might be part of the reason why they call such a horrible 2-point conversion play is because they didn't have Kamara, so they couldn't run the play they wanted to run. But Winston apparently went in, rubbed some dirt on it, and came back out and played. Because and then when he came back out, he was lights out. You know,
he got the Miyagi. Sean Payton was dressed as Mr. Miyagi in the Saints locker room, and he went.
I think so. They were taking that little thing and rolling it back and forth. You know, so you got the little TikTok thing.
Yeah,
like Karate Kid 2. Yeah, Geno Smith is having himself a game. 17 of 18, 2 touchdowns. Yes, the 2-point conversion. Bob and I were just talking about that off the air. 2-point conversion should have been Taysom Hill. If you were going to run Ingram, I would have had, and this is what I told Bob, I would have had you go to 5 wide, spread them out, and have Thomas and Olave outside the numbers, have Landry inside the numbers, and even have, you know, Hardy inside and Callaway inside, because they were all active. You know, have Hill and Ingram stand in the backfield in a shotgun formation, and you can run the RPO to Ingram. You know, because Hill can get to the outside. And I like the idea of Taysom Hill versus maybe 3 guys, and he's only got 2 yards to go. I like that matchup on the right.
Yeah, so do I.
And I think you use a 2-point play.
Or as I said, if you're only going to go with a single guy behind center, why the hell wouldn't it be Taysom?
Yeah.
He had success with that play, in the past. And by the way, Saints fans, Alan and I told you so. We told you so. We told you so. We told you so. But again, just like you pointed out, Mr. Butler, if you're going to run that play again, why the hell wouldn't it be Taysom? Period. It's not a play I would have called at all, given the fact that you had success throwing on the Falcons in the last 2.5 drives. But if you are going to call it, why wouldn't you have the guy who's used to doing it?
Absolutely.
It was a microcosm for how I thought the Saints offense performed and coached throughout 3.5 quarters.
Yes. So let's talk about the first 3 quarters as little as possible, but let's talk about that. What was the basic problems that you noticed in those first 3 quarters that the Saints failed to make adjustments to counter? What was giving them the most problems?
Number one at the top of my head was interior offensive line. And a lot of people were throwing the offensive line as a whole under the bus. I thought Ramczyk and Hurst did just fine. Hurst got blown up on one play in the second half, but I thought he held his own. Ramczyk was Ramczyk. But the Falcons made no secret that they were going to target the Saints' offensive guards, specifically an interior offensive line in general. And the New Orleans never did make any adjustment to it. The only reason they had success over those last 11, 12 minutes of the game is because the Falcons stopped doing what they had been doing up to that point.
Which blew my
mind. I know. It was the Falcons falconing.
Yes.
Because on one first half sack in particular, I am sure the idiots at PFF are going to credit Hurst for giving up the sack, but very clearly it was Hurst did what he was supposed to do. He engaged the interior rusher along with Pete, and then he moved to the outside rusher because they had either a tight end or a back guarding him, which is a mismatch. So he did the correct thing and moved outside. When he did, Pete literally stopped. Like, he dropped his hands and stood there. It was, and I'm not accusing anybody of this, but if you didn't know any better, it looked like he was paid off to take a dive. That's how egregious it looked. Ruiz on the other side, unless he had McCoy helping him out, and when he did, again, that left Pete one-on-one. But unless Ruiz had McCoy or Ramczyk helping him out, he was clueless in pass protection. He was clueless getting off the mark in the run game, with a couple exceptions. The offensive guards continue to be the problem. And I'm not talking skill-wise. They were outmatched and outnumbered. That has a lot to do with communication. And all off season, we have been saying, look, guys, there's nothing to worry about as far as the offensive coaching because a lot of the continuity is going to stay the same. And it's where the Saints should be ashamed of themselves because it did stay the same. Yeah, schematically, it should have stayed the same. That's all the more reason to make adjustments to what a division freaking rival that you see twice a year is doing to you, and they failed to do it.
This is the same game plan they had back in 2020. Drew Brees is, or 2019, sorry, Drew Brees is second to last year. When they beat the Saints, I think the Saints only scored 9 points, and it was a last-second touchdown just to avoid, I don't know, only 3 points in the game, whatever it was. And the Vikings copied that same game plan, flipping and moving their pass rushers to the inside to match up against the Saints guards. And it's almost like they didn't even look at that film again to see what was wrong. And the difference was, and this is gonna make the Jameis people happy and make the weak arm truthers happy. The difference was Breeze couldn't put the ball past the blitzers, like Jameis could. But Jameis did not have the accuracy of a Drew Brees, and I felt like early in the game when they had opportunities, when they did blitz, and he had some time, that Jameis put the ball behind too often. Landry and Thomas, and that's why they fell down as much as they did.
And that's lack of reps in the preseason, like you alluded to earlier.
Absolutely. And I felt that once Atlanta decided, bizarrely, that instead of us blitzing these guys, we're going to drop off into a soft zone, keep everything in front of us, make the Saints burn the clock for us by having a long time-consuming drive to get a touchdown. And then when we get the ball back, we're going to run the ball right down their throats again. And I think I read Atlanta had the ball in the fourth quarter for over 9 minutes, and they still lost.
Wow.
Yeah, they had almost 10 minutes of that fourth quarter because the first touchdown was 4 plays, a little over 2 minutes, and they scored a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. And then the next touchdown, the touchdown that with the bad 2-point conversion, that was 8 plays in 3 minutes 57 seconds. So, and it helped a lot with big pass plays. The big pass play to Olave, the pass play to Michael Thomas, and then of course when they went for the field goal, the huge pass to Jarvis Landry. I mean, it just.
And listen, give all the credit in the world to Jameis and those receivers for making the plays that they needed to make, regardless of the coverage that they were in on. Even though, when the Falcons switched over, they switched over almost into a matchup zone, to use basketball terms, because they still had A.J. Terrell for the better part, matched up on Michael Thomas. And that's a matchup. And remember, folks, this is still not a 100% healthy Michael Thomas.
No,
he still ate him alive, and not a single one of those meaningful plays were slants, ladies and gentlemen. They were corner routes, back shoulder throws, difficult throws for a quarterback to make. And Jameis put it where only his guy could make them. Not only to Thomas, but to Landry and to Olave as well. So, those guys made the plays they needed to make when they needed to make them.
Absolutely. And that was key because I felt like when we were talking earlier about the play calling, I felt like Carmichael and Dennis Allen had channeled Carl Smith and Bum Phillips with some of these play calls where it was run, pass, pass, punt. and you're playing field position. That was frustrating as anything. And I felt like once they felt like Atlanta had loosened up on the blitz and they let Jameis start throwing the ball on first down and getting into that rhythm where it was up tempo, no huddle, which only works if you're actually completing passes and getting the ball
Right.
going. Otherwise, you just had a 30-second possession because you threw three incomplete passes when you're punting. So, but yeah, they got the up tempo stuff. We started completing some passes and and they were leaving the middle wide open because their idea was keep them in field and we can go ahead and make them eat the clock for us.
Mhm.
So he took well advantage of these things. It's all situational football. And Jameis even admitted in the post game, hey, all we had to do was, get rid of the game plan and just go out there and just start. And it's the one read, and we're playing backyard football now. Cut at the Buick, do a button hook around the tree kind of stuff where you're just hitting people because the defense is giving you sections of the field, and your receivers are better than the defenders who are covering them.
Mhm.
And that was to me that was the real difference between the two. Um, yeah, I was going to answer both these questions. Anna was saying, is it me or is Jameis holding the ball too long? Compared to Drew, yes,
Yep.
but Drew was getting rid of the ball in less than 2 seconds. Um, I thought he held on to the ball too long and gave up a couple of sacks that way. But there were also times where the defense was on him before he had a chance to do it.
Mhm.
And again, that goes back to, and this is what Calvin's saying, they had too many free rushers.
Yep.
This is what was driving me nuts. And I don't want this, I don't want people to misunderstand me. I don't expect Jameis to be Drew Brees. I don't expect anybody to be Drew Brees. But it was driving me nuts that never once did I hear Jameis go kill, 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 and switch the play or drop down to a knee and do the hand, the born the hand jive motions, to the receivers to tell them we'll change your route, shorten your route,
Mhm.
quick flare out pass. We're gonna do something. I got a rusher coming on this side, or hear him say 51, 51, 50, 45, 45. Who's the mic? Identify the mic. And I don't know if he's being told, don't worry about that. McCoy's going to call that or what. But I thought when I was seeing Mariota do it and Winston wasn't, that was driving me crazy because I felt like if he just changed the pass protection, Ruiz is a turnstile. Have Ingram stand next to you, and then you identify
Exactly.
what's coming in that side, and Ingram go pick that guy up, and then you do Hank Stram's moving pocket, roll him out away from the overload blitz.
Mhm.
Yes, you cut the field into a third, but you still give yourself an opportunity with your receivers that you've
Yep.
got to make a play and get the Falcons to back the hell off because that's the only way you're going to defeat the blitz.
Yep.
Um, and that was my biggest issue with everything that I was watching those first 3 quarters.
Yeah, and don't think for one second that Tampa Bay hasn't watched that film and is
Oh
going
yeah.
to come at Jameis Winston with exactly that same kind of strategy with better linebackers in Devin White and Levante David. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be something that the Saints have to rectify literally at high speed. Otherwise, this is not a Tampa Bay defense that you're going to come back from 16 points down.
No, no. And if the Saints run defense isn't any better and Fournette can get rolling, then you're not going to touch Brady all game because in every game the Saints had dominated Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they were not able to run the football.
Yep.
All 4 regular season games that we beat Brady, it's because they could not run the football. So Brady had to look for his matchups, and he didn't have a good matchup. with Evans on Lattimore. You don't have a good matchup. Well, of course, Adebo has to be back, but you have a good matchup with Godfrey on Adebo. And
Godwin's out, by the way. Here,
yeah,
he's out for a few weeks, but you still have Russell Gage and Methuselah dressed
yeah,
as Julio Jones, who actually had a decent catch last night.
he did. He did. So if Brady doesn't have his matchups, then he's holding the ball too long.
Mm-hmm. And
And
yeah,
he's getting
everybody, Tampa fans want to point to, the Saints beat Brady in 4 regular season matchups, but we got the playoff game. And yeah, that is the most important of the 5. But Brady didn't win that playoff game.
no.
That playoff game was won because of 4 turnovers, a
Mm-hmm.
noodle-armed Breeze, and a non-existent Michael Thomas, a Deontay Harris at the time, that you lost a quarter and a half into the game, no Taysom Hill, and no Latavius Murray. Not to mention the fact that Leonard Fournette had 107 total yards, and Fournette and Jones combined for over 120 rushing yards. That's
Yeah.
why. Brady didn't even hit the 200-yard mark that game, and he barely
No.
completed 50% of his passes.
And yeah, 11 cracked ribs too. You're right. Um, yeah, that was still affecting Breeze. But yeah, the receivers were shot. He simply did not have the receivers he needed to make the plays, and all that happening at the same time. The Bucks offense could never put a drive together to score a touchdown. Looked a lot like what we saw last night against Dallas, where they were settling for field goals. Um, the only time they scored touchdowns was when the defense got a turnover inside the Saints side of the field, and
Mm-hmm.
that put the pressure on the defense to defend a short field.
Yep.
Um, but all that being said, you still had an opportunity to win the game until Cook fumbles the damn ball,
Yeah.
because all of that, yeah, all that, ah, man, all that aside, if Cook just holds on to the ball, we've got a double-digit lead, and Brady now suddenly has to play catch up,
Yep.
and that would have played right into the Saints' defensive hands. Um,
Yep.
yeah, they did take another quarterback yesterday, and I guarantee you, Devin White is going to go after um, Winston's knees. I don't, I'm not saying he's a dirty player, but he is going to test that knee and see how strong that is. How
Mhm.
he's going to call it? Can he take a hit?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I saw that. He's got the same injury essentially that Breeze got. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Dak Prescott. He hit his finger on, and it was the second time he did it in that game, but hit his finger and injured his finger on his passing hand, and he's going to be out for several weeks. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting
It
to see
is.
what happens with Dallas. I feel like Dallas is almost a dead man walking team right now, and it's only been week 1. That McCarthy, they're going to have McCarthy just dangle out there, and with the idea this is your last year, unless you win the Super Bowl, this is your last year, and they didn't give him the weapons to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And that
Seven
now
picks.
you lost your marquee player, at
Mhm.
least marquee player on offense, and Dak Prescott. Yeah, I get the same feeling, and I don't want to be hypocritical about it. I mean, we just got done talking about the Saints issues, but prefacing it with it's only week 1. The Saints also didn't lose their quarterback. They also didn't look completely clueless on both sides of the ball throughout the game. And exhibiting the same issues as Dallas, did, that cost them their season last year. There's a big difference, between the two situations.
Mhm.
But Alan, let me ask you: are you worried about the Saints' defense based off of what you saw yesterday going into this week against Tampa Bay?
Um, No, because Brady's not a read option quarterback. And I think the running quarterbacks give them more trouble than the pocket passers. They like dealing with pocket passers. Uh,
Hmm.
they know where the quarterback's going to be, and they can just play meat at the quarterback. And all they have to do is concentrate and beating the hell out of the offensive lineman in front of them and get to the quarterback. Um, I am concerned though when they go to play the Cardinals, the Ravens,
Sure.
um, who else out there? It's got the mobile quarterback, the 49ers, you know, who knows what's going to be happening with the Falcons and then the Eagles. I'm concerned about all those games, even the Browns to an extent. But yeah,
Hmm.
those are the games I'm more concerned about this defense. I think Paulson Adebo being out there instead of Bradley Roby, I think that'll help the secondary a lot more. Although Mariota really didn't do a whole heck of a lot against the defense. In the passing game, running game, he was more of a problem than he was in the passing game. I mean, he could
Yeah,
pass it.
I agree. Mariota needed to make made the throws he needed to make,
Hmm.
but yeah, the Falcons weren't going to win that game on his right arm, and I don't think any of us thought that coming in to begin with.
Yeah, and I feel like when they play the Buccaneers this weekend, the key is going to be you like we said, shut down Fournette, you know, and the way you shut down Fournette is you meet him in the hole and you drive him backwards.
Hmm.
Don't let him get outside. Don't let him square his shoulders up and come downhill at you. Um, it's that, and that's the key. And you also have to take advantage of opportunities when you have that secondary beat. You have to make the plays. You have to make the good throws. Um, I'm more concerned about our offensive line against Tampa's defense.
Yeah.
That's my bigger concern because we can't have what we had last week or yesterday. We can't have that. Cannot have guys running free and hitting Winston and shutting down the run. You
No,
know, uh,
I'll. I wouldn't even mind a max protect scheme. With two tight ends or an extra back in the backfield to step in the hole and take on that inside blitzer because that's where Tampa's going to come. You mark my words.
mhm.
Uh, I'll take that. I would take that and give Winston an extra second to survey the field with one less receiver. Because unlike last year, last year you had to make do with what you had, but this year you're still talking about attacking a secondary, with Olave, Thomas, and Landry, while you keep everybody else in on max protect. I like those odds a hell of a lot better than I would have last year with Callaway, Kenny Stills, and Deontay Harris.
Well, yeah, and they knew when they won 9-0. Once Godwin was out and once Fournette went out with injuries, they pretty much knew they had the Bucks where they wanted them
Mm-hmm.
because they knew the Bucks weren't going to be able to move the ball well against their defense. So that's why they did what they did. They played ball control. We're going to run the ball. Even on third and long, we're still going to run the
Yeah.
ball, not put the ball at risk, knowing our punter is going to flip the field, pin you deep, and make you go 80 plus yards against this defense. And we know you can't do it. So we will take our chances that we will keep you out of field goal range, knowing you can't get down the field and score
Mm-hmm.
touchdowns and change the outcome of this game. And I thought the turning point in that game last year was the goal line stand where Tampa got nothing.
Yeah.
Um, and they like their matchup with, and Chauncey Gardner Johnson's not on the team anymore. I'm aware of that. But I mean, they liked Adebo, Jenkins, and Lattimore and Chauncey Gardner Johnson over anything Tampa could throw at them as
Yeah.
far as receiving options.
Yeah, and now this year, the Saints, with or without a Debo, the Saints are actually more athletic in the secondary because of the
Mhm.
safeties. Uh, and Lattimore on Evans. I think we've seen enough to know by now that Lattimore is going to have, more often than not, Lattimore is going to have the advantage in that matchup. It's Godwin that's always been the thorn in the Saints' side,
Mhm.
but now the Godwin is sidelined. Remember, you got no Gronk either.
No.
I'm not sneezing on Cameron Braid. You and I have both always loved him as a tight end. I would have loved to
I
have him
believe
in a
he's a
Saints
former Saint.
uniform.
Yeah, I know.
Uh-huh. But Cameron Bray is not going to break the game open like a Gronk or a Gronkowski, or a Godwin or a Gronkowski or an Antonio Brown.
He's not a
The
matchup nightmare.
Right, exactly. He's more of a safety valve, a security blanket,
Yep.
and outside of that, they're going to have to depend on Julio Jones, Russell Gage. Now we've seen Gage make some plays against the Saints while he
Mhm.
was with the Falcons, so don't sleep on him. But again, I have a hard time believing that Russell Gage and an 87-year-old Julio Jones is going to beat you if you can shut down Evans. Cut the field in half for Brady, put pressure on him, and shut down that running game.
The thing about Tom Brady, and they kept talking, and good God, COVID Collinsworth last night, talking about his big father turn. He's 45 years old and he's got the same passing mechanics he had in 2006. I watched that game way too long. But anyway, when he was talking about that, I'm like, yes, but look how long that ball hangs in the air.
Yep.
And that's the key when it comes to Brady and the deep ball. When you look at, and I'll even throw Jameis Winston in the mix, but when you look at a Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert or Jameis Winston, look how fast that ball comes out. Look at the RPMs on that ball and look at the arc. Okay. Breeze, when he got older, and they would start talking about his weak passing arm. Breeze didn't have trouble getting the distance. People think he did, but he really didn't.
No.
What it was the ball hung in the air longer because he had a higher launch point that he had to release that ball to get it over the line and get it downfield. So the RPMs weren't there. The trajectory was higher. So the defensive back has a chance to react to the ball as opposed to a John Elway or Joe Namath pass where you can hear that ball whistling as it's coming towards you because it's got so much torque thrown in that ball and that RPM is so high. And that's really where Breeze never had that kind of arm to begin
No.
with. But when he got older, he had to change his launch point to make it even higher.
Mm-hmm.
So get the almost a shot put kind of throw to it to get that high arc. And you see that with Brady, even though Brady is taller, I see it where Brady is really he's launching that ball so high when he throws a deep ball.
Yeah.
Because
not just the deep ball, Alan. I see it on the sideline routes too.
Yeah, that too. Any route that makes him, because the deep out is the hardest throw in football. It always is. When you're on this hash mark over here and you got to complete the out route on the other side of the field.
Yep.
Essentially the Jarvis Landry throw that got him in field goal range. Except that sucker was so damn high. That was almost reminded me of Jeff Blake with that high arcing ball. But yeah, when you got to throw it from that side of the, and it's of course it's on your arm side, not if you're right-handed. It's on your right side, so you're throwing it. You're not rolling out against your body and throwing across your body, which is what Brett Favre did in 2009 that gave us the Super Bowl. But when you're throwing it across the field like that, you got to either be able to gun it in there like a Dan Marino used to, or you have to throw that high arc and hope that you can get it over the defensive back and get it in your receiver's hands. And that's what guys like Breeze and Brady are doing at their age, is they're throwing that higher arc to get it over the defensive back and drop it in the bucket to the receiver. Peyton did it too. Peyton Manning did it too
Oh
when he
yeah,
was older, you know.
and folks, don't make no mistake. Step onto a football field sometime, and mark off a 10-yard out on the opposite hash. That's a long way to throw a football. Now, we're average people. Okay, we're non-football players critiquing guys that do this for a living. But nobody is saying that Allen can do this better than a 45-year-old Tom Brady. Nobody
No,
is saying that I could have done it better than a 42-year-old Drew Brees. Far from it. But these guys are still getting paid millions of dollars to do this, and we're not. But nonetheless, it is a long way to throw a football. And when an analyst says when a throw like that is broken up or intercepted by a defensive back, and you hear an analyst or a play-by-play man says, "Oh, Brady, Winston, whoever it is, they just didn't see the safety." No, they probably did,
mm-hmm.
but the timing wasn't off, or they misjudged their own RPMs, to get the ball there.
Absolutely. Hey, my son, I don't know if he's still on here or not, but my son and I, he played flag football. So did my daughter one year. God, it's got to be 12 years ago now. 2000, it might be 2010. We played flag in a flag football league, or they did, and we got to play the championship game at the Saints practice facility. And they have one. They let you go indoors in the indoor facility, and just for fun, I sat there at the right hash mark and tried to throw from about 15-yard line to the back corner pylon to my son. Now I got nobody in front of me, and I am, so if it's 10 years ago, I'm in my mid 40s, so about Brady's age today, um, and I'm trying to hit that back corner, throwing a ball to my son. And these aren't NFL footballs. These are well, yeah, I think they were NFL footballs. I think that's what we were playing with. But anyway, the first couple passes, I could get it back there. But when I started throwing 6, 7, 9 passes, my arm's getting tired. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling to get it to that back corner. That's not very far. I mean, it's 20 yards about. I'm throwing the ball. But I was getting worn out trying to hit that back
Mm-hmm.
corner pylon. Um,
With
and
accuracy and velocity, I mean, right? It's not easy.
right. So, that's to me, that's where I think Father Time catches up to guys like Brady. And that's why he does not want to be throwing the ball
Mm-hmm.
30, 35 times in a ball game. And because the more he throws it, the harder it is for him to make those distant throws like that. Uh,
And Allen, he only threw 29 times if you count the 2 times he got sacked. They only dropped back to pass 29 times last night.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Calvin, I was going to talk about something else. Anna asked, how many penalties did the secondary have yesterday? I don't think they had that many. I think, though, they had the ones they had were critical.
Yeah.
One was both of them were on Lattimore. Um, I thought the first one, that on third down, the holding call, they call him, I thought that was BS.
Yeah, big time.
Because I felt like everybody was doing that the whole game. I just felt like it was one of those calls. It was like, well, we can't end the game like this, because the game was over. If they don't get that first down, the game is over. They don't even get a chance to try that field goal. They got a punt. But yeah, that second one, that was stupid. Why throw him to the ground? You know, um, yeah, and you got him in field goal range, realistic field goal range. I mean, 63 yards is still a long way, but it's realistic field goal range. Um, I would have liked to have seen the people's faces. I've seen the videos, people watching that kick, and it would have been so on point um, for them to just miss it, or it looks like it's going to go, and then it falls just short. That would have been a typical Saints Falcons game. But
It would have, but I don't know about you. When they lined up for the kick, I had resigned myself to the fact I'm like, he's going to make this freaking kick. I really thought that.
If it would have been under 60, I think I would have felt that way. I feel like any kick that's longer than 60 yards, um, it's hard to make that
Sure.
because the trajectory is so low that I'm not surprised it was blocked. And I got to be honest with you, I don't have cable anymore. I have streaming services. So Twitter is faster than my
Mm-hmm.
TV. Um, so I was actually reading Twitter. That was one of the reasons why I was on Twitter. I was reading Twitter to see what would happen before it actually happened to my TV. How pissed off or how happy do I want to be? Um, and it's going to be worse this week because road games, it's I'd say about 3 seconds delayed. Um, I read it was blocked as they're lining up to kick. When they're at home and I'm watching it on a streaming service, I'm almost a whole play behind.
Yeah, I am too. On Sunday Ticket. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost a whole play behind, and it, it it's a good thing and a bad thing because
Mm-hmm.
I'll see this thing and it says that was an incredible play. I'm like, all right, now I got to really watch this and pay close attention, or worse, fumble, damn it, that's I'm like, all right, here we go. Don't get too excited. This is a blown play. And even though I know it from there, somewhere in the back of my mind, it's like it hadn't happened yet. So maybe it really
Yeah.
won't happen. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
it is funny.
I'm like that. If I'm a few seconds or up to a play behind, and something will come across my screen like this play is getting called back, and the Saints score a touchdown. I still get excited, semi-consciously forgetting that I know this is about to be called back, whether it's BS or not.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, can we talk about how the Peyton Turner made a hell of a play to block that
Yeah.
kick, but yeah, even before, the special teams made a difference. Yeah, everybody knows that Lutz came through clutch again,
Mhm.
and kudos for him because after hitting the upright earlier in the game, I was a little bit nervous, but
I was too.
Taysom Hill to set up the Saints' final drive. Uh, he was, I think, going to block that Falcons punt, but he
Mhm.
drew the hold penalty that in turn gave the Saints an extra 10 yards, which might not seem like much, but again, it ended up being a 51-yard field goal by Lutz. Do the math. We just talked about Koo lining up for a 63-yarder. The Saint, Lutz would have lined up for a 61-yarder. And we know Lutz, just like Koo, has the leg to make it, but you would have been in the same exact position. That we're talking about, the Saints kick getting blocked or the Falcons kick getting blocked, potentially, especially with the line issues New Orleans had all game, potentially the same kind of situation there.
John, I think Taysom, like Michael Thomas, was kind of on a pitch count, a snap count, because he's still recovering from that last frick. I know I mispronounced that word, uh, but that foot injury. He's still recovering from that, which made that 57-yard run so exciting. The fact that he still showed the speed and the burst
Yeah.
to get outside and I'm getting ready to talk about this right now, Calvin. But to get outside and make that big run, and had he be fully healthy, he probably scores on that run. I think he kind of slowed up a little bit because he's not quite there yet, but it was still an incredible run. And then the touchdown run, the 11-yard touchdown run, just magnificent piece of work, magnificent blocking. No one
Mm-hmm.
touches him. It was just a great play. And I really thought that was going to be once they got the was it an interception? It was it was a fumble. It was a
Fumble.
reception, and then Werner punched the ball out, so it was a fumble. And the Saints were, I thought, were going to break the game open at that point,
Me too.
that possession, and it ended up not. They ended up having to miss field goal.
Yeah.
Um,
But listen, one of the things that makes Taysom so effective on those plays, as much as we say as Saints fans, they do it too much and it's predictable. Uh, it it's only predictable, or you only do it too much when the opponents stop it.
right.
But Taysom only gets those opportunities 2, 3, 4, 5 times a game at the very, very most. You
Hmm.
do it 9 or 10 times, and yeah, it then becomes predictable to the
Yeah.
point that opponents are waiting for it, and can and will stack a certain so because it's always on the right side too.
Hmm.
They can and will stack that side. So in addition to Taysom being on a pitch count, and rightfully so, I think it's because the plays that he's so effective doing, you can only do a handful of times per game.
Yeah. Well, talking about this, Lutz missing that first kick. If they score a touchdown on that drive, instead of kicking a field goal that gets missed, and they're up 14-3, I think that kind of changes what the Falcons want to do, and we see
Yeah,
less Cordell Patterson. You
yeah.
see Mariota put the ball in the air more, and it played more into the Saints' strength as far
Hmm.
as pass defense. So yes, I agree that was a turning point. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about the intentional grounding call and that whole final sequence because some people were mad, and after it was over with, I agree with them, but at the time I didn't about the way they managed the clock on that final drive for the field goal. So here we go. First play is the big bomb to Landry. Landry gets down the field. It looks like he steps out of bounds, or he may have gotten pushed out of bounds, but then he kept running. So then the refs, we have no timeouts left. The refs grab the ball because I was making sure they didn't flip it off to because they were happy. They got the
Right.
ball to the official so he could spot the ball and set it, and they're all running to kill the clock. Did you see the officials wave and stop the clock, or did you see the wind up? I didn't see either one.
I didn't see either one either. But the way I look, when Jarvis made the catch, I actually thought he was down inbounds and
Hmm.
got touched. And obviously, Jameis and the rest of the offense thought that too. That's
Yep.
why they ran up and spiked it. I look at it this way, even if, and we're watching on TV, so I will acknowledge that maybe we don't see the referees, wave the clock stop or the wind motion. But you're talking about a 40-yard pass downfield.
Yep.
Both sides still need to run down the field, get set, and snap the ball. That is
Yeah.
plenty of time for the officials to yell out to the Saints in particular, since they're the offense. The clock is stopped. The clock is stopped. And they would do that. You and I have played even way back to
Hmm.
the high school level, and you and I have watched college. You've watched pro games live. You can hear them on the field. If you remove the crowd noise, you can hear them on the field. Talking to the players in
Right.
situations like that. So that's
He
why
could
that's
stand.
why I continue to be infuriated about it.
Yeah, he could technically the official could stand and hold the ball
Yeah.
and say the clock is stopped, it's not set, you cannot snap the ball. And you wouldn't have had to kill it.
Yep.
So that's first down. You get a penalty for intentional grounding because you cannot kill the clock after the clock has already been stopped. So I
Hmm.
get that. Okay. So that's first down. Second down is the pass.
It was to Juwan.
Juwan Johnson. Okay.
Beautiful throw, by the way.
Yes. Okay. So that's second down. Now, for whatever reason, Jameis in his head didn't realize that with an intentional grounding call, you lose the down because you see him signal second down. Well, he did
Hmm.
the hook 'em horns. He said
Yeah.
second down, you know. So he's thinking that was second down that he threw to Dwan Johnson. No, he's thinking that's first down, and he throws it to Dwan because he's thinking he gets to replay first down because of the penalty. So then he
Oh,
kills.
his thought. Yeah, his thought process. Right.
Yeah, so he kills the clock on third down for the field goal, and now there's 20 seconds left in the game. I think had the clock had stopped, and they all knew it, he doesn't get the intentional grounding, the 20 and then 20 and the 10-yard penalty or the 5-yard penalty. I don't remember how far
It was
back.
10. It was 10.
Okay, and loss of down. I think then they could have the conversation in the helmet. Listen, after this completion, let the clock run.
Hmm.
Clock, let it go to 3 seconds. We're going to go for the field goal or kill the clock, kill the ball. We're going to go try and get the first down. If we don't get the first down, then we'll go for the field goal. But I think
Right.
at that point, they were forced to kick the field goal, obviously, because it's fourth down. And he wasn't thinking about watching the clock and letting the clock burn down. So
Yeah.
that was
I'll agree with that. And yet again, it's the officials, and we moan about it countless times during the regular season. It's the officials, Goodell's goons,
oh yeah.
uh, insisting on them taking control of the game instead of the players on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the biggest problem in the NFL and football today, really. But yeah, particularly the NFL because that's the cash cow. But yeah, I mean, I completely understand what Jameis was thinking after the completion to Landry. He was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I would like to hear from the officials. I would like to have been in that official in an official's press conference and ask the question. Again, understanding that if we're watching on TV, I will acknowledge that an official might have been off screen, waving that the
Mm-hmm.
clock was stopped. But did you say anything to the players as they were running down the field? Because
Right.
you're asking now 22 players, not counting coaches on the side. You're asking 22 players in the heat of the moment to pay attention to one official off to the side when their
Exactly.
mind and muscle memory from the time that they were Will's age, 5 years old, are
Mm-hmm.
trained to do a certain thing in that situation. It was obviously a lack of clarity on the part. Uh, John, man, I can't believe I dropped that ball.
Let's see if Charles dies soon.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. Joseph, who's a new viewer here, wants to know if anybody's going to the London game. Calvin's like, if I could afford it, I would love to go to the London game one time, but yeah, I can't afford it, and I have to be at work. I have to be at work on Monday, and I would have to take some time off. I'm not flying to London just for a football game. I'm flying to spend some time in London.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. As would I.
but yeah, and that's exactly it. You practice a 2-minute drill, and you practice a 2-minute drill with all three timeouts. You practice a 2-minute drill with no timeouts, and it's no timeouts. So your whole philosophy is get down the field after a big pass play, give the ball to the ref, spot the ball. That was the mistake that the Cowboys did in
Mhm.
the playoffs. But you get the play set, everyone's set, you check, spike it. And that should take X amount of time. They time you on that. How
Mhm.
fast you get down the field and set, and they want it done in X amount of seconds. So that's what they're thinking. That's what they're doing. So yeah, I thought the official did fall down on the job there, and we ended up paying the penalty for it because the yardage didn't bother me nearly as much as the loss of down. Because now it was almost impossible to get the first down unless you picked it up on second down. You got into
Yeah.
reasonable distance in second down to go for a first down because you're facing the clock. Your
Mhm.
mind is, I need to get this ball and I want this ball in position whichever hash mark Lutz likes, and that's where I'm kicking. That's where I'm setting it up. I'm gonna spike it and get the offense on that side. So yeah, it was an impressive kick. I was happy he did it. I thought it was especially after that miss, like Calvin said. It was one of those things. It was a confidence booster.
Mm-hmm.
We know he has a leg for it. It's a question of the accuracy. Um, but yeah, it's that was a confusing sequence, and so was the sequence when Atlanta had the ball that last drive. Um, Too many questionable penalties, too much conversation after every penalty, too.
Yeah,
A lot
it
of
was.
a lot of huddling.
That's why I call them conveniently questionable penalties.
Absolutely. Um, Final thoughts. Who were your studs and who were your duds in the game?
um, my duds were no doubt Ruiz and Pete, and I probably put them in the wrong order. If I'm going, one being worst, I think Pete had a worse game than Ruiz,
Mhm.
because at least Ruiz had some moments as a run blocker on say Taysom's runs in particular. Those are my first two thumb down. Uh, Nextly would be Lattimore, not for the coverage, because I thought he did fine. It was the lack of composure from a seasoned veteran down the stretch. And again, it was a call that probably shouldn't have been made. It was emotional, heat of the moment, etc. Uh, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're a New Orleans Saints player, you need to know that in certain situation, and I sound like a conspiracy theorist, I realize, but the track record speaks for itself. Uh, if you have the fleur de lis on the side of your helmet, you have to be more perfect than the other guy,
Mhm.
especially in a game clinching situation. Um, Other than that, I was disappointed at Marcus Davenport. He was rather invisible. I'd actually like to see his snap counts because it felt like Granderson played more of the game than Davenport did.
Yeah.
Those are my thumbs down. My thumbs up were the game balls that I awarded in my article this morning. Uh, I gave honorable. I got grief for not giving out enough game balls in some of these Facebook groups, which just I left it alone. Uh, I only gave honorable mention to Jarvis Landry, who had I thought a hell of a game. I only gave honorable mention to Will Lutz because I decided to give 3 game balls out. I gave about to Taysom Hill because he was the only one that showed a sign of life in the first half. And I gave game balls to Michael Thomas and Jameis Winston. Those are my studs.
Okay. Well, I would probably do something close to yours. I probably would give game balls to Lutz for bouncing back, Thomas and Landry, and an honorable mention to Winston and to an extent Taysom. Although Taysom was the offense for 3 quarters,
Mm-hmm.
and and if Taysom would have been out there for that 2 point play, I probably would have given a game ball to him too, uh, just because uh, we didn't see enough of Taysom. We saw him on that one drive, and that was really, we saw him a couple other times try and run to the right a few times, and he didn't get the nearly the yardage.
Yeah.
Uh, but Taysom's a spark for this offense. If this offense
Right.
is lethargic, or the team in general is lethargic, you're going to see Taysom come out there and do something, because
Mm-hmm.
something about Taysom out there that gets this team going. And I don't know what it is, but you think about the Eagles game, for example. When he ran that fake punt inside the Saints own 20, they run a fake punt and he gets it. It was like that was the spark that got the team going. You
Right.
go back to what was it, 2016? Might be 2017. I think it was 2017 when the Bucks were in that god awful bright red onesie.
On the
Uh,
road. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and Taysom got the block punt. It was like from that point on, the Saints that turned them on. So
Right.
yeah, that's my to me that's my that's how I view Taysom. So honorable mention slash I'll probably give him a game ball too for that. Um, my duds are all in, yeah, the two guards, but I'm gonna give more duds on defense. The front seven in general I thought was very poor.
Yeah.
Nobody stood out in the front seven. Werner had some good plays. He had 13 tackles. He forced a fumble, made that key stop, but I felt like too often you saw Patterson having his way with the defense.
Hmm.
Um, I probably give another one to Lattimore or this and Roby, the secondary in general. Yes, they didn't do very much. They because the Falcons didn't really put the ball in the air a whole heck of a lot.
Right.
But when they did put the ball in the air, it seemed like those receivers just sitting there open.
Hmm.
There was hardly any contested balls, and that's what bothered me. It's like they're rarely throwing the ball, so when they do throw the ball, knock it down, or make a play. Um, Even though we got turnovers, it were really fumbles, not
Hmm.
interceptions. And I felt like we should have got some interceptions out of that. And I hate to say it, but I was disappointed in Kamara too. I just didn't think
Same.
Kamara uh, got anything going. He didn't look nearly as explosive as he did against San Diego or Los Angeles. Sorry, Los Angeles in the preseason game where he looked a lot more explosive. Um, Calvin asked what happened to Kamara. Apparently it was a tightening of his hamstring or something to that effect. He went to the locker room and then he said he was fine in the post game. I did not. There was no report. In fact, I didn't even know he went in there until I saw it on Twitter.
No, I didn't know he went. I knew he wasn't on the field,
Mhm.
in some head scratching situations. And we did come to find out from Dennis Allen that Kamara was dealing with a rib injury.
Oh, a
Uh,
rib injury.
yeah.
Okay.
But DA also said, and I quote, unless he's channeling his inner Sean Payton, he said, his quote was, "It shouldn't be an issue going forward." So we'll see.
He can put a flak jacket on. It's
Sure.
they have those. Um, yeah, I didn't see it either. The only one I saw go to the locker room was Jameis
Hmm.
because it was a quick shot of him going to the locker room, and I know he was limping a little bit. And
Yeah.
then you see the next shot you see is Dalton picking up his helmet, putting his helmet on. And I'm like, okay, but they were on offense the whole time and defense the whole time, so he never did come in. So, but he should be back. Listen, I don't even know what the score is. I've got Peyton and Eli on Monday Night Football. I don't have Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, so I don't know what's going on in the game. What is the score? Let me
It
see.
is 17-13 Seattle with a minute left in the third.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I saw that he just turned the ball over. Um, but once again, we're talking about the difference between regular season and preseason, and how this is still like a preseason game for a lot
Mhm.
of these guys. Anna says Geno Smith was having a coming out like a house on fire at the beginning until teams start figuring him out
Yeah.
and what he likes to do. Then it kind of changes. So wait to the third week of the season.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, for the Saints, that'll be the Minnesota game in London. That's going to be an interesting game. I was really impressed with the Vikings as they destroyed the Packers.
Definitely defensively. I knew the Vikings have some young talent on defense,
Mhm.
but still some big question marks in that secondary. And I thought that that's where Rodgers would beat him. And he had opportunities. His receivers dropped like three balls. Rodgers, the almighty Aaron Rodgers, was off the mark more than usual. Um, But yeah, I'm like you. I'll wait to see. I hope my team, goes through, goes through these first 3 weeks 2-1, or first 4 weeks 3-1, or even 2-2. I would settle with, uh, while they get their druthers about them, while they get their routine about them, while they establish their chemistry and identity. But yeah, until then, it's interesting to see the Packers get knocked off, the Steelers knocking off the Bengals. Yeah, this going on in Seattle. Chicago winning a game at all. Uh,
in the monsoon.
right. But yeah, you don't expect these things. Like you mentioned the Rams before. The Rams couldn't possibly be that bad. Uh, yeah, I'll wait to see how things shake out. Yeah, but in the meantime, the Saints have another big divisional game coming this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. The Panthers, the Panthers are who they are. Um, they still have a ton of question marks on offense and
Mhm.
defense. I thought Mayfield kind of got a little spark going, but they just don't have enough weapons on
Right.
offense. So that's going to be an interesting game in Carolina. But yeah, the important thing is you've got to beat the Bucks again, because if you don't beat the Bucks, good God, it's like losing a game in college football. You're out of the national championship talk. You're out of the playoff talk. Everything else. If you knock the Bucks again, the talk won't be that you get the respect that you beat the Bucks, but rather, okay, so what can Brady do now? How can
Right.
Brady get back in? When will the Saints stumble so Brady can get back to winning the division?
Right.
That's how the talk will be. And personally, I'd rather that talk than assuming after week 2 the division's sewn up and you might as well mark the Bucks as the #1 overall seed. You know.
Yeah, and I'm like you. I pay zero attention to the national narrative. I
Mhm.
just don't like the fact that you're going to have to chase a Goodell team. It is what accidentally slipped out of my mouth. But a Brady team that is going to be protected by Goodell's goons. I don't like the fact that you're going to have you're basically chasing a game if you drop this one.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about this in the beginning of the show, Calvin, but I do think the Saints will play better defensively against Tampa. It's in the dome, first off. Secondly, they know what the Tampa's going to do. They know offensively what Tampa likes to do. Um, Brady's not going to run around. Brady's not going to run an RPO. So the pass rush will be better.
Hmm.
And the Bucks offensive line, didn't they lose a lineman in that game, or a lineman had gotten injured in that game?
One went out. I don't know if he came back in or if. Oh no, it was. It
Wasn't it
was
worth?
Donovan. Hold on, it was Donovan Smith, the tackle.
Okay, the tackle.
Elbow injury. Yeah, the left tackle elbow injury.
Okay,
And Donovan Smith is someone that Cam Jordan has abused all his career anyway.
yeah,
Uh, it's way too early to tell whether Smith will be even a game time decision or not. But right now, the word out of Tampa is he'll play if he can deal with the pain. So that's an eyebrow raiser.
right. So yeah, so if in that case, I do. The key is though they have to be able to stop the run,
Yeah.
and if they can stop the run, the game is theirs. And again, it's more of a challenge for the offense. You know, I told somebody, I said the Bucks are gonna be blitzing off the bus anyway
Mhm.
because that's what Todd Bowles likes to do. Um, and if he saw the Saints had trouble with the blitz, they're gonna really blitz them hard. Uh, so I'm not worried about the Saints defensively. I'm worried about the Saints offensively against the Bucks defense.
Mhm.
They have to be better, and I don't know what it's going to take other than uh, coaches have to make better adjustments
Yeah.
and know what's coming. There shouldn't be any mystery now. You go fire up the film that you had last year because it's basically the same team, and they were
Hmm.
running the same damn plays. Um, just maybe a couple different people. It was the same damn plays.
Yep.
So
Yep, and you can't turn the ball over if you're the
No.
Saints. Uh, I thought the Saints were very vanilla yesterday defensively.
Hmm.
And I don't know whether that was design. Maybe a little bit of disrespect to the Falcons, saying, we could beat these players just on one, simple one-on-one battles, but we don't want to reveal too much of our defensive playbook because look who we got in week 2, and then there's something to that. I will acknowledge. And like you said, you're going to always play Tom Brady differently, a pocket passer differently than you would an RPO guy.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I do expect the Saints to play better defensively, but this run defense is going to continue to worry me until it doesn't.
Hmm.
That was the only complaint that I had throughout the preseason, and that was about the second, third, and fourth teamers. Well, now the first teamers are showing that same concern about the run. So if you stop Fournette, I like the Saints matchup on that side of the ball. Offensively, they have to get a running game going. I don't care whether it's Kamara or Ingram, and Ingram has had some success against Tampa in his career. But you have to do something. I think that Jameis Winston was on his way to a huge game against Tampa when he went down with injury. But Tampa, just like Atlanta, showed no respect for Winston whatsoever because they blitzed the hell out of him in the first quarter. And Jameis was off the mark on those first couple passes. But in a big game, Winston is always going to be this way because he just gets himself so hyped. He needs to settle down. And if he could settle down quickly enough and avoid early mistakes, as long as the Saints have some kind of balance, I think that they'll be able to feast on that Tampa secondary, who I've always thought is vastly overrated.
Well, they're a physical secondary, and
Sure.
that's what it is. They like to hit people, um, but they're not very good cover guys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're all about hitting and intimidating, so the receiver drops the ball instead of looking the ball in for the catch. Um, and I think between Thomas and Landry, you've got receivers who they can take a hit and they're going to come down with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an advantage in our favor. Um, and then special teams, I like, even though Ryan Suckup's a good kicker, I still like Lutz and Gilligan over what Tampa's got. Just because I think you can pin the Bucks deep. And like I said earlier in the show, you make Brady go against this defense, go 80, 85 yards for a touchdown. He's just not going to do it. He was struggling against Dallas's defense, and Dallas's defense isn't nearly as good. It's just they're not built to run the ball and get long drives going.
No.
All right. I know it's time for your cigarette break. I'm about had it too. Bob, you've got the Bayou Blitz show the Wednesday night. What do
Yes.
you have lined up for that show? Anything yet? Is it still in the planning stage? We're 2 nights away this time.
Right. Don't know about a guest yet. Still working on that. A couple former players who I've had on the previous shows. There's been some scheduling conflicts. Quinn Early is one of them. But we're going to get these guys on through the season for sure. Obviously we're going to go back over what went right, what went wrong against Atlanta, and give you our best possible preview for the Tampa Bay game. By Wednesday, we typically have a little bit more information injury-wise on both sides. So possibly we'll be able to give you breaking news as well.
Last question before we go: would you sign Sue this week to bolster your run defense and have him play against his old Tampa team?
I would sign Sue this week just because it is Tampa. And Ndamukong Suh would certainly bolster your run defense. At this stage of his career, he has to be on a limited snap count to be effective. But just nothing more than, and you see division rivals do this all the time. I I would sign Sue leading up to this, but if you're going to sign Ndamukong Suh this season, this is the week to do it.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's not going to happen, Saints fans.
I don't think it will either, but I would do that. Real quick, John Butler posted that Trey Swilling signed in the practice squad. My daughter's friends actually know Trey, and they played against him in high school. When my son was at Brother Martin, this is the adopted son of Pat Swilling. His biological son is a couple years older, and he was at Brother Martin about the same time my son was.
That's Bruce, right?
I think it's Bruce. He played basketball. He didn't play football.
Yeah, I thought it was the opposite. I thought Bruce was the adopted and Trey was the biological. I could be way wrong though.
But it's Patrick. Pat Swilling Jr. is the basketball player. So let me see. I'm doing Pat Swilling's son. I'm Googling it right now just to make sure. Yes, Pat Swilling Jr. is the biological son. He is actually playing for Tulsa. No, he was playing for Tulsa. That was 2012. That was 10 years ago. God, it seems to be updated. Let's see.
And then Bruce and Trey, I know both played for Georgia Tech last year.
Yes, Bruce Jordan Swilling and Trey Swilling. Bruce Jordan Swilling may be that's the adopted one. Let's see. His son Pat Swilling Jr. was signed and played at the University of Tulsa in 2012. His two of his sons play in Georgia Tech. And Bruce Jordan Swilling was the linebacker of the two.
Mm-hmm.
But it does not say which one is adopted. I think Bruce Jordan is the adopted one. So I'm not positive. But when my son was there, yeah, Bruce is the adopted one. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I hate being that kind of guy because it's still your kid. Just because he's adopted doesn't make him. But it's just identifying the biological one. Yes. Yes, Bruce joined his siblings, Pat Jr., who was there when my son was at Brother Martin, because my son graduated in 2014. Pat Jr. graduated in 2012. Star daughter and Trey's son. And I think Star was one of them was at the Louisiana Sportsman Banquet because my daughter, when they won the state championship, my daughter and the basketball team were there as well. Ken Trahan hosted, and Pat Swilling was there, and I was like 3 feet from him. That's still a big man. I'm not gonna lie, that was a big man sitting in that chair right by me. That's a quote from his article. Okay, but anyway, yeah. So Trey is the youngest then, and Trey is on the Saints practice squad. But I know Pat was there with his family for one of their kids getting an award, and that was in 2016. So it's got to be it might be his son. It might be his older son. So anyway, his middle son. Sorry. So anyway, but that was my encounter with Pat Swilling. I so badly wanted to talk to him, but I didn't know how to approach him. Because I mean, you're Pat Swilling. People know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not one of these guys like, hey, you're Pat Swilling, aren't you? And I got to say, he's also still in shape. When I last saw him, he was in shape. Unlike, and this is not knocking Ricky, but unlike Ricky Jackson or Morton Anderson to an extent, or definitely Bobby Hebert, he didn't put on the post-career 40 that some of these guys seem to do. Pat Swilling looks like he could still go out there and play. Um, so that was one impressive thing about him. But yeah, he was a big man. That's 6'4", and he looks every bit of 260, 250. You know, I would not have wanted to have that guy come running at me. And he was my favorite linebacker too of the Dome
Mine too.
Patrol. My brother was a fan of Vaughn Johnson because he loved the way Vaughn Johnson hit people.
Yeah, so did I, and I loved all four guys, but Pat Swilling is probably my favorite Saint player. Uh, Definitely was off of those teams, and at least I don't think I've gotten starstruck too often when I've interviewed these guys, as even the guys that I grew up watching. But I won't lie, I've spoken to Pat Swilling two or three times, and yeah, I felt some butterflies. I hope it didn't come out that way in my interviews, but I certainly felt it.
They were all special, and we've talked about this many times. What made the Dome Patrol so good is they all fit.
Yeah.
It's rare you get four players who complement each other as well as they did, um, and that's why that defense was so good
Hmm.
with those four because, and I felt once you broke that up, and this is not a slight towards Ronaldo Turnbull, but once you kind of broke that up, they were never the same.
No.
Uh, and you could see that happening because it was first Pat was gone, then Vaughn was gone, then Ricky left in 93, in 94. Um, and, Sam was the only one left, and Sam left after the 95 season because the Saints were stupid. But they really were. That was just a stupid, stupid thing to do. Just like the Morton Anderson deal, that was a stupid thing to do to save some money.
Hmm.
Um, but once the first one was gone, it was like it was never the same.
Right.
And that was probably the hardest part about dealing with the end of Jim Moore's tenure. And it's not a knock on Jim Everett or anyone like that, but it just you just didn't feel the same way about this defense. You just didn't have that same impact. And it upset me when, people would talk trash about Pat Swilling. He's not doing anything over there. The Saints made him that play. I'm like, dude, you know, he's being miscast in the wrong kind of defense. And he was good because he had pieces that fit together. And
Yeah.
that's what made him special.
And the guy still averaged 10 or 12 sacks a year through most of the rest of his career
Mm-hmm.
on bad Raider and Lion teams. So
Yeah.
I'll say it until my dying breath. Pat Swilling should be in the damn Hall of Fame.
I would love to see it. I really would. And whenever I see anybody wear 56, that's the first thing I think of is Pat Swilling, because to me he made that number. Like Ricky Jackson made 57. You
Mm-hmm.
had players that wore 57 before, but when Ricky Jackson put it on, that was his number.
Yep.
And everybody who wears that number now, and Sam Mills at 51. Anyone who wears that number has to hold it up to Sam Mills. And Jonathan Vilma does a great job wearing 51. Demario Davis does a fantastic job wearing 56. But to me, that's Swilling's number. That's Vaughn Johnson's 53.
Yep.
Morton Anderson is 7. He'll always be 7. So anybody wears 7, I think of Morton Anderson when I first see it. And I love you, Taysom, but man, it's Morton's number.
Yeah.
It's just that's the way my mind works. Caesar
Mm-hmm.
Ruiz.
Mine
Caesar
too.
Ruiz is insulting 51. I'll just tell you that right now. I don't like him wearing 51, just like I don't like Werner wearing 20. That bothers me. It doesn't look right.
No.
I'm old school, and I do realize there was a time when you could wear any freaking number you wanted, and John Hadle wore 21 as a quarterback. I get that. But there are just certain kinds of numbers that linebackers should wear, and you wear either the 50s or the 90s. No in between. I like receivers wearing 80s numbers. I can't help it. It's just how I grew up. Um, So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation for another
Yeah,
time. Where I sound like get off my lawn, but
same.
but it's what happens when you're conditioned that way. Growing up watching the NFL. So
Hmm.
anyway, thank you guys for joining us on
Yeah,
this early night, Monday night football, Monday night under the dome. We'll be back on Tuesday night. I promise you, I'll get an update on Sean. I'm trying to make some contacts to see at least when he gets home, so we can talk, and see how badly his apartment is. But as soon as I find anything, I will post it on Facebook under the Under the Dome podcast page. Bob has Bayou Blitz Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Yep, I
yes.
think the same thing. 34 is Earl Campbell. I got you, and Walter Payton. But yeah, 34 Earl too. Um, but in the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. Go Saints! Important game. Bucks next week. Every game's important, but these divisional games are even more important. Let's help teach that. Pull out the old GIF from SpongeBob. How many times you got to teach you this lesson, old man? Teach that old man one more lesson. So, in the meantime, thank you guys. Good night.
Night.